Good morning, everyone. Jerry, can you increase the volume a little bit? Oh, no, that's good, isn't it? Great. I've got a little bit of a limp this morning. You'll have to forgive me. But good morning and welcome to PROBUS, our March meeting, and welcome as well to the YouTube viewers. It's so good to be back together again after our cancelled February meeting due to the bad weather. What a difference a month makes. According to Kelsey McEwen, the CTV meteorologist, we're looking forward to a temperature high of 16 on Saturday. Bring it on. Now, I don't know if you saw me limping on the way up here. Well, here's a bit of advice. Is it a little not loud enough? I was limping on the way up. And the bit of advice is don't take surfing lessons when you're on a Southern Caribbean holiday. Thank you to our greeters today, Marian Laurie and Joyce McCall. We appreciate you, and thank you once again. I do not like to start off a meeting on a sad note. However, we have learned of the passing of one of our charter members, Mary Taylor, on December 28. Mary was well known here at PROBUS and was a tireless volunteer within the Guelph community. There will be a celebration of life held at a yet unannounced time in the spring. Let's just take a moment to respect her passing. Thank you. Today's meeting will consist of regular business items, introductions of new members, and an enjoyable morning with our guest speaker. Just a quick reminder to ensure that your cell phones are turned off, please. And guests to be introduced today. If I'm asking the guests when we introduce you to stand up and just face the back where those two red lights are so that the YouTube viewers can see you. So I'll start, and I'm introducing Bruce and Shirley Watson. Where are you guys? Right there, just face the back. Martha Elliott, you have a guest to introduce. Just a minute, we're going to ask you to wait until Dave comes with a microphone.
I'm introducing my friend, Helen Grant.
Kathy Stevens.
I'd like to introduce Janet McMillan. She's our friend, and she's come for a visit today. Thank you.
Louise Watson.
I'd like to introduce my friends, Judy Riches, Linda Smith. These ladies are dear friends of mine. We met about 8 or 9 years ago when we were all involved in programs with the Alzheimer's Society. And our spouses were all there because of their illnesses. Anyway, they're great people. Thank you.
And Ruth Thatcher.
I'd like to introduce my friend Rosemary Clark. Rosemary Clark and I work together in Rotary. And she's coming today to enjoy our fellowship, and hopefully she will join.
Is there anyone else that I have missed? I think that's it, Dave. So we welcome you and hope you have a good time with us here today. Thank you. I want to let you know that the nominating committee have met to search for a vice president for the upcoming year, 25-26. We've met, we've talked, We have a list, and we hope to be back to you soon with an update. Talk to myself, Ann Boudreau, or Linda Davenport, if you'd like this position. For anyone that is keenly interested and desiring an interview with past President Ann Boudreau, please form a double line here on the stage immediately after the meeting. Today, we have several new members who are about to be introduced to you, so let's get started on that, and Linda Denny is the gal that's going to help us out. Oh, is Jesse Watt here?
Oh, come on up.
Yes, come on up.
No prizes, but come on up. Hi, good morning, everybody. We've got several of these people we're going to introduce today, which we're happy to introduce everybody. So I'm going to read their bios for them, and so we get to know a little bit about our new members. So my name is Heather. I was born in Montreal, and I did my nursing training there. I married a few years later. We moved to Toronto in 1968. We have 3 married children and 6 grandchildren. My son and his family live in Thailand. My daughter and her 2 girls live in Rockwood. My youngest son and family live in Stouffville. 1 daughter-in-law is Korean. 1 is Chinese. My husband was from Trinidad. It is wonderful having a multicultural family. I did some delivery room nursing and nursed in psychiatry for many years. Not knowing how to retire, I nursed until I was 72. Good for you. Oh, way. Yeah. Following retirement, I volunteered in hospice in Guelph, spending time with the patients and their families. I continued to volunteer there. My husband died 3 years ago. We were married for 56 years. Really nice. I miss him so very much. I'm looking forward to being a PROBUS member, and thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. And this is Jessie Watt. I first came to Guelph to attend the University of Guelph. After completing both a diploma in horticulture and a degree in social science, I stayed on as Guelph had become my home. After graduation, I worked for many years in the social services field. My initial position was working with individuals on probation, both adult and young offenders. Specifically, I developed placements for offenders who had court-ordered community service hours to perform. Later on in my career, I worked as an employment counselor, facilitator for several different agencies. Both of these positions more than fulfilled my desire to help others make better choices in their lives, resulting hopefully in a more fulfilling existence. As a retired person, I see myself as an individual first and a senior second. I try to express myself through volunteer work. Currently, I'm a member of the PROBUS Program Committee and the Book Club. As a GWSA member at the Evergreen Center, I sit on the membership and the marketing committee. I also interview volunteers at the center and submit their profiles in the monthly newsletter, The Sentinel, to support volunteer recognition and appreciation. I look forward to meeting more people at PROBUS as I joined in September 2024. Rosemary? This is Rosemary and Chris Carrington. Rosemary left her husband at home. He's coping well.
Yeah. We both grew up in England during the World War II. Living just south of Birmingham, we met as members at a cycling club. Rosemary grew up in a cycling family while Chris joined the club in his teens. We both cycled in the UK and Europe, getting married in 1963, and our daughter Anne was born in 1967. We immigrated to Canada in 1969, settled in Waterloo. Chris worked as an electronic engineer at Raytheon Canada, while Rosemary was employed at the Toronto Dominion Bank. During this time, we enjoyed traveling throughout Canada, as well as hiking trips in the UK and Europe. A trek in Nepal in 1998 was a highlight of our hiking experience. We are lucky to have had family and friends visit us from England and on a regular basis. On retirement in 2003, we moved to Bracebridge, where we joined the PROBUS Club of Central Muskoka. Over the years, we enjoyed many of the activities they offered, including the outdoor group. We have wonderful memories of holidays in England and Europe, where we spent with the hiking and the cycling groups. PROBUS is a great way to meet people, and we look forward to continuing this in Guelph. Last year, we moved to be near our daughter in Guelph. Not an easy decision, but we knew that we needed to do that before we were getting too much older. By joining this PROBUS, we hope to continue joining the activities offered by the club. We enjoy both the walking and the hiking groups, and Rosemary has joined the new book club. Thank you from Rosemary and Chris. Oh, thank you. Eleanor, where are you? Come on up. Good statement and stuff, eh? Behave. And this is Eleanor Harrison. Recently, Eleanor was introduced to PROBUS by Marion Lurie. And she's happy to say that she's enjoying it very much, and she finds us a very welcoming group. And she's surprised to see how many people she already knew when she walked through the doors. I'm a proud mother of 5 children, 8 grandchildren, 11 great-grandchildren, who live in London, St. Thomas, Fergus, Ingersoll, Rodney, PEI, Newfoundland, and Kapuskasing. Did you visit them often? No. A bit about myself. I was born in Chatham, Ontario. My father, employed by the CPR, was transferred periodically, so I've also lived and went to school in Glencoe, Linwood, Tilbury, St. Thomas, Cambridge, and Guelph, so she's a traveler. I graduated from Tilbury District High School in 1955. The same year, I decided to become a hairstylist. I've enjoyed that career for a number of years. I always wish I could bore you. While going to high school, I worked part-time at Lemire's drugstore, earning 25 cents an hour. Do you remember those days? Yeah. My summers were spent detasseling corn for DeKalb Hybrid in Chatham. The pay went up to $1. Later in life, after my children were grown, I worked for the Bank of Montreal in Tilbury for 5 years and joined the RBC in 1974 in St. Thomas, retiring from the main branch in Guelph in 1999. I held positions from the lowly tellers, as we were all called back in the day, up to the manager. Very good. My time now is spent doing things I like to do, spending as much time as possible with my kids and grandchildren, taking in as many Blue Jay games as possible. I enjoy bridge, euchre, cribbage, going out to dinner, seeing plays with my friend Barbara, Sudoku, crossword puzzles, Wordle, reading a book, and cooking. I think we need you on the activity group. Yes, I think. Yeah. I volunteer at Guelph General Hospital, also at my church, Trinity United Church, and I do therapeutic touch. In addition to that, I can play a pretty good game of 8 or 9 ball pool at the Real Deal. Oh, I said that right. Okay. And she says, thanks for having me. Thank you. And this is Carol Arison. Here we go. You ready? Yeah. Hello, my name is Carol Arison, and I'm excited to be part of PROBUS. I was born in Midland, Ontario in 1951 as the middle of 3 kids. My parents have passed away after living long, full lives. My older brother and his large family still live in Midland, and my younger brother now lives in Columbia. After I finished my schooling in Barrie and got a taste of the Toronto life, I moved to Guelph in 1979. Not too long after, I met my husband Paul and had 2 children, Scott and Emily. Paul and I celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary in September. Well done. Scott lives in Toronto with his longtime partner Jess, and Emily lives in Guelph with her dog Stan. I'm a retired radiological technologist, having served a 35-year-long career at the Guelph General Hospital. I retired in 2015 and have been enjoying my time ever since. Regular hobbies include euchre, attending plays put on by Drayton a few times a year, reading in the backyard poolside, and walking my daughter's dog while she's at work. I'm looking forward to increasing my social circle through the fellowship and various activities PROBUS has to offer. Thank you. And this is Gordon Nichols. Okay, I was born in Toronto and had the good fortune to grow up half a block from High Park, eventually attending Humberside Collegiate. The fantastic teachers I had at Humber Collegiate helped me to balance my interest in both academics and athletics, and I eventually had considerable success in both. I entered Queen's University on my 18th birthday and had 4 super years studying math and economics, playing football, joining the Navy in the University Navy Training Division to become an officer in the Royal Canadian Navy Reserve. Then I trained to be a math teacher and started my career at Etobicoke Collegiate before moving to Northview Heights Senior Secondary School to take the position of the department head after just 3 years. I loved teaching and decided the classroom with students was a place to spend 35 years. Finally, administration called when the University of Waterloo convinced me to join the new Centre of Education in Math and Computer Science as a financial officer in 1995. When I was 29, I met a beautiful young lady who shared my interests, and we were married in 1968. After a few years of adventures, our son arrived in 1973 and our daughter in 1978. Shortly after, we moved to Kitchener and started to grow roots in a smaller city. In our new life in a new city, we set 4 priorities for ourselves and worked hard to keep a balance between these important aspects of our life. The priorities were: 1, the care of a growing family; 2, a career that eventually led to authoring books, awards, and a job at the university; 3, experience with our children, the wonderful outdoor life that the 4 seasons offer in Canada; and 4, care for the environment. As the years passed, the balance of these 4 priorities led to children that graduated from university and had professional careers. I received the Prime Minister of Canada Teaching Award, and also both Daphne and I received from the Kitchener-Waterloo Naturalist Group an award for contributions made to the environment. It was great sadness in this wonderful shared life came to a halt with a cancer diagnosis for my wife in 2015. Daphne kept going as long as she could, but the cancer won in August of 2016. Since then, I have tried to keep the balance, and after several years of deliberation, I decided to move to a wonderful Guelph community called Village by the Arboretum. It will hopefully be a place where I can continue to balance the priorities I consider important. Thank you. And that's all our who am I's for this meeting.
Okay.
Yes. Well done, Linda. And once again, folks, welcome to the club. Just a reminder to our members, if you see a red dot on their badge, it means that person is a new member, so be sure to welcome them. Kathy Stevens will introduce our guest speaker today. Oh, Marion will be doing it. Thank you very much.
Kathy arranges it. I'm getting introduced.
I like it.
Good morning. First of all, to clear up any misconceptions, this Tom Watson is not the golfer. I didn't even know there was a golfer named Tom Watson, so it's a good thing somebody told me that. Anyways, Tom is a United Church minister, retired musician, author of over 20 musical comedy productions and a couple of books as well, a story writer, a storyteller, a father, a grandfather, and a member of PROBUS. Thus, not a stranger to most of us here. Tom says there are two things that make his day: music and laughter. And I'm sure we'll enjoy some of the latter as we listen to him today. I've known Tom for many years and consider him to be a very good friend. I also count him as a mentor who aided and abetted my own entry into the ministry with the United Church a number of years ago. As part of a musical quartet, we enjoyed playing many a musical gig together, and still do occasionally, although now we're a trio, having lost our fourth member a couple of years ago. So I know you will enjoy his presentation today, and I have confidence saying that even though I may be a little biased. So without further ado, I am proud to introduce my friend Tom Watson.
Thank you, Marion, for that kind introduction, and greetings to President Jim and all our PROBUS members. And by the way, Jim and I were going to sing a duet for you this morning, but Jim and Ruth just recently returned from a trip to Barbados, and unfortunately, he had to take care of that limp, so we ran out of time to rehearse. So we'll leave that for next meeting. So if you want to hang around after this morning for a bit, we're going to practice a couple of tunes. So. We're only a few days away from St. Patrick's Day, so I wanted to tell you a story I read recently. A routine police patrol car was parked outside a bar in Donegal, Ireland. After last call, the officer noticed Paddy leaving the bar so apparently intoxicated that he could hardly walk. Paddy stumbled around the parking lot for a few minutes, and the officer watched him intently. And after what seemed like an eternity, Paddy tried his keys on 4 different cars. Finally managed to find his own car and then fell into it. And he sat there for a few minutes as other patrons came out of the bar and got in their cars and drove off. And finally he started his car, switched the wipers on, flicked the blinkers a couple of times, honked the horn, then switched on the lights. He moved the vehicle forward a few inches, reversed a little, and then remained there for a few minutes as more of the patrons left. And finally, when his own car was the last one in the parking lot, Paddy pulled off and drove slowly away. Now, the police officer had been totally engrossed with watching Paddy, and he started up his own car now, put on the flashing lights and pulled Paddy over, and he administered a breathalyzer test. And to his amazement, the breathalyzer test showed no evidence that Paddy had consumed any alcohol at all. So dumbfounded, the officer said, "I'll have to ask you, Paddy, to accompany me to the police station because it's obvious that this breathalyzer doesn't work." "Oh, I doubt it," said Paddy. "Tonight I'm the designated decoy." Anyway, thank you to Kathy Stevens for inviting me to come and speak today. I remember one other time that she invited me to speak, and I asked her if she had anything in particular in mind, and she said, Tom, we're looking for a diversion, and you're more diverted than anybody else I know. So here I am again at your diversion. Well, in fairness, Kathy was a little more specific this time. She knows that I write stories from a place called Our Town, Life in Our Town. So she asked me to bring you a Life in Our Town story. I have spent much of my working life as a United Church minister, as Marion had said. And back in 1995, when I was minister at Trinity United Church in Guelph, I began thinking of a different way to do sermons, some format that had a chance of getting past the parking lot. And I knew that congregation members often have a roast preacher for lunch, so I figured I might as well give them something to chew on. And as I thought about it, it became clear to me that stories might do that. Why? Because stories get remembered. And the next step was to find a framework for those stories. And I grew up on a farm near the small town of Wheatley, Ontario, excuse me, not far from Tilbury, that was mentioned here earlier. And I've lived in other small towns, so I know that every small town has unique characters. How many of you grew up either in or near a small town? See a good number. Did any of the people there have nicknames? It's not so common these days, but they did when I grew up around Wheatley. There was Doug Galanders, he was called Plugger. Donnie Wigfield, Wheel Weights. Lawrence Bailey called I Thunk, because he always said that, I thunk, such and such. Jack Hyatt called Crazy Jack because he once led a riot when he was imprisoned in Michigan. Glenn Hall called Gibbard, don't know why. Ronald Dibley called Turk. Bob Getty named Wimp. Leon White, nicknamed Tink. Tink was a great big mountain of a man, drove a blue pickup and went barefoot all year long. Couldn't believe it. And if there was a skunk under your chicken house, Tink was the guy to get. One more, Elmer Jackson. Any idea what his nickname was? Elmer Jackson. Fudd. You're right, Fudd. Typical small town stuff. Now, it so happens there's a small town in Ontario called Our Town. It's a perfect place from which I can draw stories because they always have stories going on there. And in case you haven't heard of Our Town, it's one of the most vibrant communities ever to adopt the Canadian landscape. Population 431 on a good day in the summer. And Our Town is filled with the same set of colorful characters you'll find anywhere else. And I'm going to talk today about something that happened in Our Town. It was an unusual wedding. Well, it's been a busy week in Our Town. Although since we're in March, people aren't quite yet chomping at the bit to get out and get their gardens ready. They're still in winter mode and they're taking it easy, and it doesn't take a whole lot for people in Our Town to feel busy even when they aren't doing anything. Strange, really, the effect of cold weather has on people. A while back, some women in Our Town formed a walking group similar to what you have in PROBUS. And they usually go along on a pretty good clip, but on those polar vortex days in January, each of them found excuses they couldn't go today. They do manage to walk on the sidewalks that are a bit slippery, but getting on in years and her eyesight is failing, so she usually plays the hymn so slowly, you're almost crawling through. But the last few weeks, she's gone up a couple of years. It's the only way she can keep her hand on. And even the dogs feel the cold, because one day when Fred Bowers called his dog Jasper to go out for the morning walk, Jasper just looked at him, yawned, rolled over, stretched one leg out and pointed a paw at the cat and said, stood up and asked if he could speak. The MC invited him to come up to the microphone, and this was his short speech. My name is Roger, and I'd like to say something on behalf of the rest of us here. Bruce, none of us have ever met you. Agnes, we've seen you at the mission helping out there from time to time, but we really never got to know you. But are we ever glad that you invited us to come and be guests at your wedding? By asking us to come, you have made our day. You see, we rarely get a chance to go to things like this. So it's a special treat, even if we wear stand-ins, because the real guests got stuck in a traffic jam. Other than that, all I want to say is that none of us will ever forget this day. And I'm sure you won't either. So on behalf of the rest of us stand-ins, we wish you the very best in your married life together. When Bruce got up to reply, he had to wait a little bit and catch his breath because he was a bit overcome with emotion. And in the end, all they could say was, Roger, thanks very much for your good wishes on behalf of all of you and the rest from the mission. And on behalf of Agnes and me, thanks for willing to be, as you say, stand-ins. You say that we made your day. Let me assure you that you made ours too. Now, when Pastor Willie finished relating this story, the other old guys just sat there for a couple of minutes, and finally Milt Prosser said, Willie, what a great story. I can see why you said it was the most unusual wedding you'd ever been to. Yep, said Pastor Willie, that it was without a doubt. Now, when Frank Burstead went home after coffee and told his wife Myrtle all about the wedding, Myrtle rocked back and forth in a rocking chair for a few minutes, and then, frankly, who would have ever thought that inviting a whole bunch of strangers to your wedding could turn out to be so wonderful? Hard to imagine it, isn't it, Myrtle? Said Frank. Although, continued Myrtle, my mother used to say that strangers are only friends we haven't met yet. That wedding sure seems to prove it. So hats off to Agnes and Bruce for turning a disappointment into a blessing. With that, Myrtle Burstead got up from the table and headed for the kitchen, and she said, it's time for lunch, Frank, and I'll go make our usual wieners and beans. Well, that's the news from our town for this week, at least from the stories that I've heard. Now, over the course of my ministry career, I have officiated at something like 1,500 weddings. And I've seen some pretty interesting things happen. But I've never been at one where 48 of the 50 guests couldn't make it. Although I do have a story about a similar situation when some friends of mine from Brantford got married. The wedding date was in January. And many of their friends lived east of Toronto in the Belleville and Coburg area. The rest of them, the other half, came from around London. And the weather turned ugly on the wedding day, and none of the guests from either east or west were able to be there, so they had a very small crowd. Now, cycle on 25 years later, it's time to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary. They're not going to take a chance on bad January weather. So they had the 25th celebration planned for mid-April. And on that April day, there was a freak ice storm. My late wife Janice and I managed to skate from Guelph to Brantford. Guess what happened to the guests from east and west? Couldn't make it. So there we were, full meal. 12-piece band for dancing, the works. But instead of going to be 120, there were 35 of us. all imagine how Agnes and Bruce felt when most of their guests couldn't make it. But then when Myrtle Burstead said, "It's right, hats off to the bride and groom for turning a disappointment into a blessing." And she also mentioned something else that her mother said. Strangers are only friends you haven't met yet. When Agnes and Bruce decided to invite total strangers to their wedding, they were turning strangers into friends. And think for a moment about wedding gifts. Normally, guests at a wedding take gifts to the bride and groom. In this case, it was the reverse. As Roger said, we rarely get a chance to attend something like this. Now, I'm sure that if you or I were holding a wedding, we'd still do it the same way it's usually done. We'd invite the special people in our lives, our family, our close friends, to be the guests. And I don't mean to suggest we should do anything differently. But I do think it's important to keep in mind that some people don't live with the perks and privileges that you and I take so for granted. And that seems to me is what the wedding that Pastor Willie, the pastor over at the Church of the Reluctant Apostle, was talking about when he told the other guys in the coffee shop that it was the most unusual wedding he'd ever been to. And now, since we're only 4 days away from St. Patrick's Day, and since we won't be meeting again before that time, let me leave you with a version of a traditional Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and the rain fall softly upon your fields. And until we meet again, may the hand of a friend be always near. And in keeping with what Myrtle Burr said about strangers being only friends we haven't met yet, may I remind you that all of your friends were once upon a time strangers, and then you met them, and you know the rest of the story. I didn't know President Jim Thompson and his wife Ruth until about 34 years ago. We were strangers. And then we met and we even sing together now. What good friends. So with your permission, and in keeping with the story about the wedding, I'd like to add this final line to the Irish blessing. May some of the strangers that you meet along the way work their way into your hearts and become your friends. Thank you.
I'm not 100% sure. Does anyone have any questions for Tom regarding his ministry, regarding his speech today, regarding how the heck he ever comes up with these stories? He'd welcome them. But if there are,
Are there any
there's
from
one.
the online group?
No questions up here.
Tom, I don't have a question, I just have a thank you. I remember taking my boys, Mark and Scott, to Trinity Church, and you were a blessing to them, and they still talk about you and the stories you told about our town, and I have a couple of your books, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, Kathy Stevens. Yeah.
What he was saying was that he was really sorry he couldn't be here, especially for you, Tom, because they're such good friends. John has not been well over the last year and a half or so, and now he's doing really well, and he was really hoping to be here today. But he said he has some favorite storytellers. One day Alistair McLean, and he told me that Tom is right up there with him. So we're really fortunate to have Tom here today, and I want to say thank you. From John. To you.
Tom, actually, we have one more question from the floor. It was relayed to me, and would you consider being our vice president?
Thank you, David. Jen already asked me about that. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm retired, but I'm still filling in 3 or 4 Sundays every month, and plus I take a very active role, as you know, in the Guelph and men's club. So, yeah. Thanks.
Thanks again, Tom. Folks, our next meeting will be on April 10. Our guest speaker will be Laura MacDonald, a member of the Mental Health Promotion and Education team at CMHA, and the topic will be Mental Health Matters, Strengthening Our Self-Compassion. Mark your calendar for the June luncheon, which will be held on June 19 at the Guelph Country Club. And to close off today's meeting, I'd like to leave you with 3 bits of advice for seniors. Number 1, talk to yourself. There are times you need expert advice. Number 2, the biggest lie you tell yourself is, I don't need to write that down, I'll remember it. And number 3, one for the road means peeing before you leave the house. This concludes our March meeting. For those of you gathering for lunch today, have a great time. Thank you.